Three close friends decided to go for a hike one afternoon, something they often did together. They chose a trail not far from their neighborhood and set off, chatting and joking as they walked. About 45 minutes into the hike, one of the friends suddenly announced that he had to go home. Disappointed but understanding, the other two continued on, unaware of the dark turn their day was about to take. As the sun dipped below the horizon and shadows stretched across the trail, the pair decided it was time to head back. But as they walked, an unsettling feeling crept over them, like eyes were following their every move. The faint sound of footsteps and crunching leaves echoed behind them. Fear took hold, and they quickened their pace, hoping to shake the eerie presence. Panic set in when the sound of footsteps grew closer. One of the boys tripped and fell hard, and as his friend rushed to help him, a masked figure emerged from the darkness, clutching a knife. Before either could react, the masked person grabbed the fallen boy and drove the blade into him repeatedly, blood soaking the ground as the friend watched in horror, frozen with fear. The attacker's gaze then shifted to the remaining friend. In an instant, the masked figure lunged forward and slashed his throat. Gasping for breath and clutching his bleeding neck, the boy collapsed. As his vision blurred, he watched the masked figure slowly remove the disguise. Beneath the mask was the face of their friend, the one who had claimed he needed to go home. A twisted grin spread across his lips as his friends died right in front of him.
In 1979, a teenage girl accepts a babysitting job at an isolated home in the Minnesota woods. After putting the children to bed, she settles on the couch to watch TV, only to be startled by a phone call. She picks it up and hears heavy breathing, when suddenly a man's unsettling voice asks, "Have you checked on the children?" Nervous, she dismisses it as a prank and hangs up. 15 minutes later, the phone rings again. This time the voice asks, "Why haven't you checked on the children?" Panic sets in and she calls 911. The operator advises her to keep the caller on the line if they call back, allowing the call to be traced. Moments later, the phone rings again, and the voice snarls, "Check on the children now." Trembling, she keeps the call connected as instructed. Once more the phone rings. The operator's voice crackles through, urgent and frantic. "Get out of the house. The calls are coming from upstairs." Terrified but worried about the children, she hesitates before fleeing outside. She bolted out of the house, her heart pounding in her chest. There, a tall man stepped out of the shadows, his presence looming as he stared her down with a chilling intensity, and he asked in a cold, menacing voice, "Why didn't you check on the children?"
Let's talk about something absolutely terrifying. So as I was going through what I call my ghost story inbox, I stumbled across this particular story that I'm about to tell you. What I thought was so interesting about it is the person who sent me this email did not experience this particular haunting. And what I mean by that is one of her teachers told her about her experiences living in a haunted house when she was younger. The story itself is just absolutely haunting and chilling in every way. So let's get into it. So when this teacher was a young girl, she had to move from her original family home to another home in the same city because of some financial struggles that her family was having. What was kind of weird about the house was it was insanely cheap to rent. That was kind of the first red flag. And this whole family's wondering why the rent is so cheap. And after a couple of weeks of living there, they start to hear voices. And it's specifically the father who begins to hear what sounds like an old woman's voice and this young man's voice. And what was really strange was it sounded like these two voices were having a conversation in the front room. But every time someone would go up to the front room, obviously there's no one there. But these particular conversations would continuously happen in the front room and only in the front room. And after a while, things started to escalate a little bit. Dishes were flying off the counter, cabinets were slamming shut, and one of the most notable occurrences happened at around 1 a.m. when everyone in the home is woken up to the sound of something crashing in their basement. Whole family gets up, walks downstairs, nothing is there. However, they also had a storage closet that was in this basement, and the dad decides to get his key out and unlock the door to see if there's anything in there. And they had these bathroom mirrors that they planned on installing into the new bathroom, face down, not propped up, face down, that were completely shattered. And obviously this really freaked them out because the door was locked and the mirrors were literally face down. So there's no way that they could have fallen, and there's no way that someone would have been able to get in because the only key was with the dad. And this is kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, where the entire family was like, yeah, we need to figure something out so we can get out of here. And after this whole thing had happened and the ball started rolling on getting a new home, the dad was walking around the house one day and hears from the front room this argument happening between these two voices. It's something along the lines of the woman saying, like, "You've gone too far, stop terrorizing this poor family and leave them alone." And this time when the dad walks in, he sees someone standing there, and it is a boy with strawberry blonde hair standing in the corner of the front room. The moment he blinks, he is gone. And that is when the father of this family begins to see this boy with the strawberry blonde hair in this front room very frequently. And finally, they're able to find a place and kind of start packing their stuff up. As they're finishing their move, their neighbor comes up and is kind of saying goodbye and like wishing them luck on their new journey. And that's when the dad asks, who owned this house before we moved in? And this neighbor says that before the landlord who is renting this home to them owned this house, it actually belonged to an older lady who lived there with her grandson. And that is when the neighbor exposes that this boy, her grandson, had passed away very tragically in the home. When the father asks, where did it happen? The man just points to the front of their home where the front room is, in the corner of the front room, where the dad has been seeing this boy with the strawberry blonde hair. And after they finalized moving out and settling into their new home, the father actually looked up the funeral announcement for that young man, and it was in fact the strawberry blonde young man who was standing in the living room. I was gonna give my thoughts on this story in particular, but I have been hearing like little knocking and like scratching and little noises the entire time that I've been filming this video. So I'm just going to close it out because I am scared. That's gonna do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories.
If you're home alone, don't listen to this story. There was a young woman that was texting someone by the name Mike on Snapchat. Keep in mind she has never ever met this person. She didn't even know what he looked like. Nothing seemed off about him. His Bitmoji, his username, everything was normal. He was a bit flirty, but not too bad. But then one night he starts asking some weird questions. He told the woman that what color were her curtains. Of course, she thought this was silly and she brushed it off. So she responded with, what color do you want them to be? She was joking and then responded, are you gonna stalk me or what? He then responds with, I wanna make sure I have the right window. She then sends a laughing emoji because she thinks he's just joking. After all, he has no idea where she lives, right? She then gets a Snapchat. It's a black image that says, nice PJs. She freaks out and she's like, okay, there's no way that he knows that I'm wearing pajamas. He could be just trying to scare her. But she hears a noise at her window. Keep in mind she's in her bedroom. She's completely home alone. She turns around and the man is literally standing at her window.
There was a young babysitter hired to watch a little girl while her parents went out for the evening. It was a quiet night, and after putting dinner away, the sitter let the girl stay up to watch a horror movie on TV. The little girl was excited, but halfway through the movie, she whispered that she needed to use the bathroom, only she was too scared to go alone. Not wanting to miss the best part of the movie, the babysitter came up with an idea. She handed the girl a small rubber ball and said, just keep bouncing this and sing so I know you're okay, alright? The little girl nodded and skipped off down the hall, clutching the ball. Moments later, the sitter heard the soft sound of the ball bouncing in the bathroom and the girl's high-pitched voice singing cheerfully, bouncy, bouncy, bouncy. Relieved, the babysitter turned her attention back to the TV. Minutes turned into a half an hour. The babysitter began to wonder what was taking her so long. But the voice was still coming from the bathroom, only it sounded off, lower, not quite right. Bouncy, bouncy, bouncy. Feeling uneasy, the babysitter stood up and slowly made her way down the dim hallway. As she approached the door, the voice continued its eerie chant. She hesitated, then opened the door. What she saw made her scream. Sitting on the bathroom floor was not the little girl, but a strange man with wild, unblinking eyes. In his hands was the severed head of the child, bouncing it on the floor like a toy as he chanted in a deep voice, bouncy, bouncy, bouncy.